Good afternoon. So today we are going to start with Weber. Okay, so as we usually start, let's first understand the basic theme when it comes to Weber's theories. Okay, so what is the basic theme when it comes to Weber's theories? Social action. So Weber said that the subject matter of sociology is social action. Now, apart from that, what are the other aspects or themes that you can actually identify in Weber's theories? No, these are the concepts. I'm asking about the themes. Okay. He did an interpretative understanding, or he belongs to the interpretative school in sociology. Now, what exactly is interpretative school? Ah, see, that is the major theme. That is, Weber tried to combine objective as well as subjective elements. So that is the major aspects that you need to understand, or the major theme that you will be able to identify in Weber's theories. Okay, mix of subjective as well as objective aspects. Then, so subjective plus objective. Then, apart from that, bureaucracy. So those are the concepts. See, what I mean to say here is, see, when it comes to the major themes of thinkers, here when we mentioned about Weber, first thing that we have mentioned is, for him, social action is the subject matter of sociology. What do you mean by social action is the subject matter of sociology? See, thing is, Weber tried to analyze the meanings that individual actors attach to their actions. Now, this can be seen in Weber's theory, especially in the initial parts where he discusses about the social action, right? So, Weber wanted to understand things at a subjective level. He wanted to understand the meanings attached by the actors to their actions. Now, this is different from the positivist school where they did not try to analyze things from a subjective level. Say, for example, take the case of Durkheim that we have discussed previously. Now, when it comes to Durkheim, he did not give any emphasis on the individual or subjective aspect. Rather, he focused completely on societal level, that is the objective level, right? So, one is Weber wanted to study things at the subjective level, but at the same time, he also gave emphasis to that of the objective aspects. Now, that is the distinction between two of his methodology, which is the social action and ideal type. In social action, he wanted to study the subjective elements. In ideal type, he wanted to study that objectively. So that mix is something that makes Weber unique from all other thinkers. Is it clear? Now, apart from that, you need to also understand that when we are trying to, understand various sociological thinkers, okay, you need to understand that in this particular graph, on one hand is the positivist school, and on the other hand is the non-positivist or anti-positivist school. Now, when it comes to that of the positivist school, they stressed on studying social reality objectively, right? They mentioned that sociology can be considered as a scientific discipline because all the methods of natural science can be applied to the study of society. That is why we say that they consider sociology as a scientific subject. On the other hand, the non-positivist school, they focused on understanding the subjective meanings, right? As well as they said that sociology cannot be studied or the scientific methods cannot be applied in case of sociology. Why do they say that the scientific methods cannot be applied in sociology? Yeah, because they say that human beings, we are studying human beings, right? When it comes to sociology, we are studying human beings itself, and human beings have consciousness, and as human beings are having consciousness, the reaction to an external stimuli will not be the same, right? Similar to that of the objects that we learn in the or study in the scientific discipline, where these objects respond similarly to the stimulus. But as human beings have consciousness and they attach meaning to their actions, the responses may vary. As a result, we cannot study that objectively. The only thing that is possible in sociological studies according to the non-positivist school is to study things in a subjective way. Now, one of the more prominent school when it comes to that of the non-positivist aspect is symbolic interactionism, which we are going to deal later regarding Mead. Is it clear? All right. Now, Weber lies in between the positivist school and the non-positivist school, because Weber, by using the Verstehen approach or by studying the social action approach, he tried to include the subjective elements, as well as by incorporating his ideal types, he tried to study things objectively. So, Weber is actually a mix of subjective and objective study. Clear? So, this is how we need to understand Weber. Also, you need to understand that there are also some other themes that you can see in Weber's theories. One is, Weber always say that, or Weber took a multi-causal approach when it comes to his studies. What do you mean by multi-causal approach? Yeah. See, basically, we need to understand that Weber was also a staunch critic of Marx. As a result, some of his theories are a direct criticism of Marxian theory. Say, for example, if you have studied the stratification chapter, you might have went through or gone through that particular area where Weber say that it is not just two classes, there can be four classes, as opposed to the idea of Marx, right? Because for Marx, classes are binary. There are only two classes, but for Weber, there are four classes. Now, when Marx mentioned about the proletariat revolution, Weber said that it's just a possibility, it need not be the case always, right? The response of the workers to the exploitation can be, it can vary. Sometimes they may go for a strike, sometimes they may go for a violent, attack on that particular factory or industry, right? And according to Weber, proletariat revolution is a kind of a rare, consequence of having that right class consciousness. Is it clear? So, as Weber is also a critic of Marx, and one of the major point where Weber critic Marx was his unidimensional nature of theories, because Marxian theory is unidimensional. Why do we say that Marxian theories are unidimensional? Because Marx bring down every other aspect into a single thing, that is the economic aspect, right? For Marx, everything is associated with that of the economic mode of production and the control of means of production. For Marx, politics, it is again related to control of means of production. Religion, stratification, so whatever, institutions or whatever types of exploitation is there, according to Marx, all of them actually come up from, or the base of all these issues are the control of means of production by a particular group, right? So, as a result, Weber focused on multi-causality. So, what do you mean by multi-causality? Weber said that the social reality is complex. As a result, we cannot explain it by using a single cause. There can be multiple number of causes, and all the causes for a particular social issue or a social reality cannot be comprehended by human mind. As a result, we will have to follow selectivity while studying social reality. Now, that is the same thing that he actually did when it comes to ideal types. Because in ideal types, he said that ideal type is nothing but selective study of social reality. A researcher is studying only those aspects of social reality that he or she want to study, and thereby leaving all other aspects of that social reality. Now, that is the only possible way to study social reality according to Weber, because otherwise it will become much more complicated, and it is not, or it is something that human mind cannot comprehend. Clear? So, these are the basic themes that you need to understand when it comes to Weber. So, before you start reading about a thinker, you should first have a clear-cut idea regarding what or the basic themes of that particular thinker. So, once you have, or once you know that themes, then it will become easier for you to connect the various concepts of the thinker. Clear? All set? Now, let us start with social action perspective of Weber. So, what according to Weber is social action? What is social action? Okay. 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 See, basically, for Marx, when it comes to explaining social action, first we need to understand what is act. Act means response of a particular actor. Okay. That can be referred to as act. Okay. Now, when does an act become action? When, yeah, actors attach meanings to their action, then it becomes action. Then, when does it become social action? If it is oriented towards others. So, what is social action? It is meaningful act oriented towards others. This is the very basic and simple explanation or definition of what is social action. It is the meaningful act oriented towards others. Right? Now, the difference is very simple. Suppose if I do a particular kind of action and if it is oriented towards you, right, then it becomes social action. Say, if suppose there is reflex actions, right, that cannot be referred to as social actions because it is not oriented towards anyone. Suppose a fly comes in and I just move my head. That is a reflex action and it cannot be referred to as social action, right? It becomes a social action only when my action is oriented towards others. Clear? Now, according to Weber, the subject matter of sociology is studying social action because according to Weber, he also took similar view, related to that of or similar to that of the non-positivist school, where they also said that in sociology we are studying human beings and human beings have consciousness. As human beings have consciousness, we cannot study them objectively. We have to understand the subjective meanings they attach to each of their action. Now, that is why he gave emphasis on studying social action. According to Weber, the major aspect, like the thing that he criticized of the positivist school is they completely ignored the meanings of individual actors. Right? See, Weber also acknowledges the fact that the social structures and social institutions can have an impact on an actor's action. But he said that in spite of that, actors also attach meanings to their actions. Definitely, for every action that I do in society, every social action that I am involved in, I'll definitely be influenced by the societal aspects, like, say, for example, the social values and norms may impact me, but definitely there again I have certain level of agency. Right? What is agency? My individual choice is also there. Right? As a result, he said that social action must be considered in studying social reality. Now, when it comes to that of Weber, next thing that you need to understand is how did he classify social action? There are 4 different types of social action according to Weber. What are those? See, in order to understand how Weber classified these actions, you have to also understand that it was done based on the goals and means. According to Weber, if for an action the goals and means are on rational basis. What do you mean by rational basis? Yeah, based on efficiency, right? The best possible method is selected by the actor, whether it is the goal or the means. If the actor is selecting the best possible outcome, most efficient outcome based on evidences, based on apply of rationality, then such actions can be referred to as goal oriented rational action, or it is also known as Zweck rational action. Now, on the other hand, if a goal is selected by an actor based on the values, but at the same time the means are on the basis of rationality, then we can say that these type of actions are value oriented rational actions. Now, what is the difference between goal oriented rational action and value oriented rational action? As I have already mentioned, it is based on the differences in how the actor is selecting the goal. If suppose I am a captain of a ship, like this is the example that was given by Weber in order to explain the value oriented rational action. According to Weber, if a captain of ship decides to go down with a sinking ship, now the goal that the captain select there is based on the values that the captain attaches to it, because captain takes the responsibility for it, right? He feels that it is because of his mistake that the ship is going to sink. As a result, he also decides to sink along with the ship. Now here the goal that the captain selected is based on the values of the captain rather than based on rationality, right? If it is on a rational basis, the captain should think that the mistake can or mistakes may happen to anyone, so they need not have to take the responsibility for that. Instead, they can escape from that particular scenario and they can actually keep on going their life. But the captain decides otherwise because of the values that they have, right? Now, on the other hand, if the captain decides that, okay, let me make all the arrangements for the members of that particular ship or the travelers of that ship to escape, along with that, captain also decides to escape from the ship. Now here the goal is selected based on rationality as well as the means is selected on the basis of rationality, right? In such case, the captain's action can be referred to as goal-oriented rational action. Is it clear? Now, if the goals and means for an action is selected on the basis of emotions, then we can refer it to as emotional action. So, value oriented rational action is there. The next is emotional action. Now, what do you mean by emotional action? Here, the goals as well as the means are selected based on emotional basis. Okay. Suppose when you see your old friend, right, the action that you most probably will be taking there, like say for example, you go to that friend and hug them, or you have or some emotional moments with your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend. All these can be referred to as examples of emotional action, because there the premise or the major aspect of action is based on emotions. Then the last type of action is the traditional actions. Now here the goals as well as the means of the action is based on the traditions. Here your aim is to protect as well as to follow the traditions. Say for example, as we usually give as an example, when you see an elderly person, you may stand up from your seat, right? Now that is nothing but a traditional action. Why is it referred to as traditional action? Because it is not based on any goals or it is not based on any emotions, but it is just based on the traditions of our society where we respect the elderly, right? So in order to continue, in order to follow the traditions of a society, all those actions that we take for that can be referred to as traditional action. Now, these four types of actions are nothing but an ideal typical classification. Now, what do you mean by ideal typical classification? You might have already read about ideal type, that is why I am just mentioning it here. This is the ideal form of classifying the action, right? In reality, because when you have learned about ideal type, we are going to definitely discuss about that. You know that ideal types are not the real types. What do you mean by ideal types are not real types? Yeah, it is just an ideal representation of something. It does not or it may not reflect the reality. So as in case of this classification, we can say that this is an ideal typical classification, because in reality we cannot classify actions into these four watertight compartments, right? A same action can have elements of emotion as well as tradition. Suppose, let us discuss an example that we have just discussed. You saw an elderly person and you are actually standing up to show the respect, right? It may have emotional element as well, right? It can have your values also, right? It may involve some of the values that you hold. So we cannot strictly separate between these four actions. In reality, actions can be a mix of tradition, emotion. It can have a mix of goal oriented as well as rational action. So it will be definitely a mix of different types of action. So that is why we say that it is an ideal typical classification. So why I said this is because whenever you are writing answer related to this particular part, in your conclusion you can come up with this idea that This is just an ideal typical classification of actions. In reality, actions can be a mix of all these types. Thereby, you are giving some value addition in your conclusion, because what I have seen among the students is you find it very difficult to bring value addition in conclusion, and you end up writing summary of your answer in the conclusion, which will not fetch you marks. Okay, because in order for you to get marks in conclusion, it is important that there should be some kind of value addition there. Okay, one way to bring such kind of value addition is to mention these kind of stuff in your conclusion. Okay, is it clear? The practical aspect of that theory can be mentioned in the conclusion, because here when we are writing it theoretically, we just divide it into 4 different types of actions. We give examples for each type of action, we end it there. Maybe we will give some criticisms, but other than that, you can also bring this idea that this is just an ideal typical form. In reality, actions can be a mix. Clear? Okay, all set? Any doubt, anyone? Online? Okay, so that's it. In that case, we will move forward. We have discussed about different types of action, and now, in order to study action, Weber used a methodology known as Verstehen approach, right? So, what is Verstehen approach? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, it is an interpretative approach used by Weber to study social action. So, how does he study social action using Verstehen approach? According to Weber, in order to understand the meanings attached by the actor, there are 2 ways to study that. One is through direct observation, and the other one is through empathetic listening. Now, what do you mean by direct observation? Direct observation means here what we do is we directly observe the particular actor in order to understand the meaning that they attach to their actions. Say for example, by observing a person, we can try to understand the meanings that they attach, right? Suppose if they are, we feel them or we find them irritated, we can see that, or we can maybe assume that they are irritated because of so and so reason by just observing them. Right here we are just observing the actor, so that we will be able to understand the meaning that they attach. In the second case, empathetic liaison. Now you need to understand that direct observation have certain limitations. What are its major limitations? The subject or the actor should be present before you in order to do that observation. In the absence of that particular actor, you will not be able to do the direct observation, right? Now, at the same time, if a researcher wanted to study a person who is no more, like who have passed away, okay, so in such cases, we cannot use direct observation because that person is no more in this world, right? The only option left in before front of us is to do empathetic listening, meaning we can put ourselves in the shoes of that particular actor to understand why that actor must have chosen a particular action. Say for example, as we usually discuss in the class, suppose we want to understand why Gandhiji, he called off non-cooperation movement due to the Chauri Chora incident, right? In order to understand the meaning attached by Gandhiji, we need to put ourselves in the shoes of Gandhiji to understand what circumstances led him to take such a decision. Thereby, we will be able to understand the meaning that he attached to his action of calling off non-cooperation movement, right? So, in this way, empathetic listening can be applied to all those people who are not around us as well as all those people who are no more, right? Clear? So, that is empathetic listening. Is it clear, everyone? So, we have discussed about social action, we have discussed about the types of social action, we have also discussed about the methodology, that is Verstehen approach, in order to understand social action. Now moving forward, let us try to understand the criticisms of Verstehen approach. So as I usually mention, if you have understood the concept really well, you need not have to refer to the criticism part. So what are the major criticisms according to you when it comes to that of the Verstehen approach? Yeah. Hmm. the okay subjectivity of the researcher. Okay, because if I am trying to analyze the meanings attached by an actor, my subjective biases may reflect in my analysis or observation, right? So that can be mentioned as an example or a criticism for Verstehen approach. It can be highly subjective, and the subjective biases of the researcher may creep in that particular analysis. Then reliability, meaning the kind of meaning that the researcher identifies may not be the exact reason or the exact meaning that the actor attaches to their action, right? Someone looking a bit frustrated may not actually be frustrated. It might be because of the kind of expression that they usually carry around, okay, but the researcher may mistaken it as their frustration, right? As a result, the real meaning or the real uh, meaning behind the actions may not be readily available to the researcher, and whatever the researcher assumes cannot be validated or the reliability cannot be ensured. Then it cannot be verified. Okay, same point. Okay, then okay, unintended consequences, right? Merton mentioned about the latent functions, right? By merely observing the meanings that the actor attaches to their action, we will miss out the latent functions or the latent meanings that the actor may attach. Suppose a person seemingly doing an irrational activity may be assumed by the researcher as a superstitious person, right? But there can be some hidden meanings behind such actions which is not readily available to the researcher, right? So as a result, it may sometimes be assumed by the researcher as superstitious act, but it may not be the same. Okay, so you can mention about the latent meanings or latent actions cannot be understood using the Verstehen approach. Latent meaning means, see, some of the actions that we actually carry out may have some hidden meanings behind it. It may not be readily available to a person who is observing us. Is it clear? Okay, then other than that, subjectivity, there is no way of validating it. Then you can also mention that Weber did not lay emphasis on the role of social structure, right? Because an individual's action may be largely influenced by the social structure, right? So the influence of social structure was completely rejected or ignored by Weber. Clear? All set? Now, this is actually simple because when it comes to the Weber's portions, I think generally the portions are easier to understand except that of ideal types, which is what I have seen that students have some problem with ideal types. So other than that, all the remaining portions are very much easy. Next, we have to discuss the causation and probability. So what is causation and probability? Again, you need to understand the major theme here. See, all the concepts that we have discussed so far is based on the theme, that is Weber wanted to understand the meanings attached by actor, because he is against the positivist method where they completely ignored the subjective meanings that the actors attach. That is why Weber gave much emphasis on social action. Now the next theme that we have already covered and discussed in the beginning was Weber also wanted to lay emphasis on the fact that the social reality is complex. As a result, we cannot study that completely, we cannot comprehend it in a complete way. Okay, now causation and probability is a kind of concept that was given by Weber reflecting that particular theme. Okay, here he tries to mention that when it comes to that of the scientific studies, you know that there is a proper cause effect relationship, right? If we mix a particular chemical with another chemical, the resulting chemical will be the same, like it will be the same, right? From wherever we do it, in whichever lab we do it, if we mix two different chemicals, the result will be the same, and it may only vary based on the volume of each chemical that we are going to mix, right? Clear? So that is a pure cause effect relationship, right? But according to Weber, in sociology, we cannot have that kind of cause effect relationship. Instead, in sociology, the causes can only be said to a particular level of probable relation. We cannot say that it is a definite or absolute relation, it can only be a probable relation. Meaning, in science we can say that if we actually, change the direction of light, the plant will start growing towards the direction of light. That we can say in a definite way. But in sociological causes, we cannot say that a particular event will definitely lead to another event. Instead, we can only say that a particular event may lead to another event. There is a probability that this event may lead to another event. We cannot say it in a definite way. Why? Because social reality is complex. There are several other factors that influence a social event. As a result, we cannot conclusively or definitely say that an event may lead to another event. That is meant by the causation and probability. According to Weber, in sociology, the causes can only be mentioned in a probabilistic way. We cannot say that it is definite. Say, for example, we can say that high level of poverty may lead to fundamentalism. Right? In every society with high level of poverty, it may not lead to fundamentalism because there can be other social factors that will be blocking the development of fundamentalism. Clear? Have you got the point? Okay. Now, according to Weber, as a result, he said that in sociological causes, we can say that there are two types of causality when it comes to the social reality. One is the historical causality and the second is the sociological causality. Now, what is the difference between historical causality and sociological causality? Yeah, in historical causality, what we do is we try to find particular causes for a particular or a specific event. Say, for example, what are the causes for World War II? Now, here we are just mentioning about a specific event and the causes for that event, right? World War II. Now, in sociological causality, we are not trying to find out the causes for a specific event, but we are trying to find general causes for such similar type of events. Say, for example, in sociological causality, we will be trying to find out the causes that promote or that may lead to World War. Here we are not focusing on World War I or II. Instead, we are generally saying, or we are trying to find the general causes that may lead to world wars. Now, that is the difference between historical causality and sociological causality. So, according to Weber, in sociological causality, we are trying to explain a particular general events that may occur due to a set of reasons or causes. Clear? So, by using sociological causality, we will be trying to explain the causes that may lead to revolution rather than finding causes for a particular kind of or a specific revolution, like say Chinese revolution. Right? We will be discussing what will cause or what are the major causes for revolutions. Clear? Is it all set? Okay. All right. Now that is with causation and probability. Now let us start discussing ideal type. It's very interesting. Okay. Now, we already mentioned that Weber wanted to study social phenomena from a subjective viewpoint. Also, he wanted to bring the objective elements. So, what Weber tried to do was, he wanted to find out the meanings that the actors attach to their actions using the Verstehen approach. Now, once the meanings that the actors attach to their actions are identified or the causes are established based on the meanings, we will be trying to create an ideal type based on these meanings to study that event from an objective point of view. Okay. Now, first let me discuss what is ideal type and then we will connect how Verstehen approach can be used along with ideal type to understand both subjective as well as objective aspects of social reality. Clear? Now, the best example for that is his study of Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism, where he made use of the Verstehen approach as well as ideal type. Okay, so let's first stick on to what is ideal type. Now, what is ideal type? Again, before learning the definition of ideal type, you just need to understand what exactly is ideal type, because the kind of definition that is given in some of the textbooks regarding the ideal type is very complicated. You won't be able to recollect it. Like in whichever way you try, you won't be able to recollect it properly. So the best way to understand ideal type is, yeah, to make, to not to make your own definitions, okay, but to understand the meaning of what is ideal type, because just you need to write that meaning, right? Hmm. Ah. Ah. That best represents a social phenomenon. It's a conceptual tool that best represents a social phenomenon. Okay. Other than that, anyone else, any definitions of what is ideal type? One-sided accentuation of social reality by eliminating. Okay. No, I don't want that kind of definition. I just want a simple, comprehensible kind of, definition of ideal type. Okay, ideal type is, okay, it is a representation of a phenomena by taking the best examples of it. Okay, then exaggerating, okay, it is understanding social phenomena by exaggerating those elements that the researcher wants to study and de-emphasizing the other elements that researcher does not want to study. Okay. See, all these definitions or understanding is correct. See, thing is, you just need to understand the idea behind ideal type. That is, according to Weber, again, understand or remember the theme. Right? Weber said social reality is complex. It is complicated. We cannot understand social reality completely. It is not possible for human mind to comprehend social reality in its complexity or in its totality. So what we need to do there is we need to go for selectivity, right? We need to study only those aspects of social reality which we need to study, and we have to leave all other aspects there. So that is the idea behind ideal type, where we will select a portion of social reality, we will take that particular portion out, we will exaggerate it. Exaggerate it means we will, kind of exaggerate the portion that we want to study. Suppose exaggeration here means you want to study democracy. Okay, now democracy have several different parts, right? There is participatory democracy, there is electoral democracy, and there is numerous other varieties of democracy that you can think of. Now you just want to understand the political aspects of democracy, that is the political democracy, especially related to election aspects. Now here, in order to study democracy, what you can do is you can take out only those aspects of democracy that is relevant for your study, which is directly related to the political aspect. Now this is known as exaggeration. You are just taking out those aspects of democracy that you want to study. All other aspects are left behind. That is why we say that selected exaggeration of certain elements. Is it clear? Okay, so you select certain aspects, you exaggerate means you only select those aspects that you want to study, you leave everything behind, right? And what you do is, in order to study that objectively, you need to create the best examples of it. Now, let us stick on to the example of studying democracy. Okay, so you have understood selectivity, meaning you are studying only those aspects that you want to study, and you are exaggerating it, meaning you are taking those aspects only and leaving everything behind. Now, in order to study a social reality like democracy and performance of democracy, that is where the objectivity and social studies come in, right? Suppose you want to study electoral democracy in India. Okay, clear? According to Weber, even though he emphasized on understanding the meanings and motives, he also emphasized on carrying out objective studies. Now, how will we bring objectivity in such studies? See, according to Weber, if a particular person belonging to our country is studying about democracy in India, there are chances that the biases may come in, right? Because we all will be proud of our country, and as a result, we will be trying to exaggerate that our country's democracy is the best. Now, that will be done by any other person belonging to any different country. Even if you go to a country where the democracy is not effectively followed, like say for example Pakistan, there also people say we have the best democracy in the world, right? So that subjective bias will be there. All right. Now, In that case, let us take another, or we will discuss that example to understand how we build ideal type. Now, in order to study the electoral democracy, and we want to compare it with the Indian democracy, now how Indian democracy is performing when it comes to the electoral aspects. So what we need to is, we need to take several different elements of electoral democracy and we need to create an ideal or the best version of it. Meaning, what are the major components of electoral democracy? Let's say universal adult franchise, then regular elections, then rule of law is not directly related to the electoral democracy, right? Inclusive representation, right? Proportional representation of population, then transparency in the process, right? Voter turnout, that is also important. Like suppose we are taking these 5 aspects. Now when we take all these aspects, we will create the ideal version of it. When it comes to universal adult franchise, meaning everyone above the age of 18 will be getting chance to vote, right? When it comes to that of timely elections, every 5 years, right on the 5th year, on the same day, elections must be conducted. That is the ideal version, right? Then third is, we mentioned about proportional representation. Each and every section of the population should be proportionally represented. There should not be any kind of, uh, issues when it comes to that of the representation. So likewise, we are taking these aspects. Okay, anyone should be able to contest elections irrespective of money or muscle power. So all those stuff. So we take the ideal version of it, and then we compare Indian democracy, or to be more specific, the electoral process in India with the ideal type that we have created. When it comes to that of the first aspect, universal adult franchise, we can say that okay, 80% of the people above 18 years in India are having election ID card, meaning they have the right to vote, they are in the electoral roll. Okay, so that means our performance is here 80%. Likewise, we can objectively study and compare each and every aspect of India's electoral process by using this ideal type, right? Second is timely elections. We have to check the instances where timely elections were not conducted in India. We will note that. So we will say that okay, 90% of the time in India elections are conducted on timely basis or regular basis. When it comes to proportional representation, we say that the representation of certain sections are not so good, and we accordingly we give certain kind of number. We can say that there is around like 70% when it comes to the performance of Indian democracy. Around 70% there is some kind of proportional representation. Remaining 30% we cannot say that there is proportional representation. Now, by doing this, we will be able to get an objective idea and picture of performance of India's democracy. Now, this is the role of ideal type. Now, through this, we are able to study a specific portion of India's democracy. We are able to study that in an objective way. This is the primary aim of ideal type. Clear? So we can study social reality objectively as well as selectively, thereby making it easier for us to understand the social reality. If you try to study democracy as a whole, then it becomes much more complicated. Clear? Is it clear, everyone? Any doubt? Anyone? No. Okay. So the thing is, you have to understand the concept. Okay, there is no need of you to write the same kind of words that I am trying to explain here. You can use your own words, but try to understand the concept. Okay, we need to understand the story. Okay, without understanding the story, you won't be able to reproduce this. You can use that definition. See, thing is, the definition that you write, especially when it comes to ideal type and all, there are several definitions of ideal type in different types of books. If you go through, IGNO material, the definition will be different. If you go through the Harlem Bose, the definition might differ. So thing is, you have to, whatever definition that you write, the person who is reading it should get the clarity regarding you have understood the concept. You have understood what exactly is ideal type. In certain textbooks, you might see that ideal type is the best version of a social phenomena. In certain books, you can see that ideal type is selectivity practiced to understand social phenomena because of the complex nature of society. So there is varying nature of or types of definitions of ideal type. Okay, clear. But overall idea should be there, because see, if you have a clear cut idea regarding the concepts, it will definitely be reflected in the answers that you write, right? There can, in whatever way UPSC asks question, they might not ask question directly every time. They may not always ask what are the functions of ideal type. They may not ask what are the characteristics of ideal type. They may sometimes ask you how to apply Weber's, concept of ideal type to study performance of democracy in India, or apply Weber's, ideal type to understand the performance of so and so thing, say, as we have discussed, the democracy, education system in India. Okay, so what will you do there? If you have just by hearted what is ideal type and you have just studied the characteristics and functions of ideal type, you won't be able to reproduce the answer, right? You will not be able to write anything. You just have to leave that answer. Clear. And what we have identified is, if you are able to answer these kind of dynamic questions in UPSC paper, they will definitely reward you for that. Okay. Selecting these kind of dynamic questions is better than attempting, the direct theoretical questions, I will say, because in theoretical questions there is nothing unique that you can bring except the fact that you can add some postmodern thinkers and their views and some examples here and there. Other than that, you will not be able to impress the examiner. It's all comparative, right? It is all relative. So everyone will be writing similar theories there, right? So you won't be able to bring much difference. But if suppose there is a question which is dynamic, you are attempting that question, definitely the answers that each and every one of you are going to write there will be different. As a result, there will be the component of uniqueness, and there is higher chances for you to score good marks there. Clear? Okay. Now, so as we have discussed the need for creating ideal types and everything, let's now focus on the characteristics of ideal types. I hope it is clear to you, like what is ideal types. Okay. Now, what are the characteristics of ideal types? As we have already mentioned, it is not a general type or average type. See, ideal type is the best type. So as a result, it is not an average. Second, it is not the presentation of reality. As I have already mentioned, ideal types need not represent the reality. Like, now remember the case with the classification of social action. I told you, right? Classification of social action is just an ideal typical classification. It may not reflect in the reality, because in reality social actions cannot be classified into such watertight compartments, right? Then ideal types are possible about, many ideal types are possible about one aspect of social reality, meaning when it comes to democracy, you can build multiple ideal types of democracy, right? You can take political or participatory democracy, you can take electoral democracy, social democracy. So several aspects of democracy is there, so you can create multiple ideal types. Then ideal type does not refer to an ethical or moral sense. It doesn't mean that as the term ideal is there, we may confuse it with ethical or moral aspect, but it is not any ethical or moral concept. Instead, you can even create ideal type of immoral aspects or unethical aspects, like ideal type of a crime, right? Ideal type of money laundering, ideal type of terrorism. All these can be done by using the concept of ideal type. Then ideal type should not be neither too general nor too specific, meaning an ideal type should not be like, you cannot build an ideal type of democracy. It becomes too generic, right? Now, if you build an ideal type which is too generic, it actually fails the purpose, because the purpose of building ideal type is to selectively study the social reality. Instead, if you are trying to build an ideal type of entire democracy, again it is failing the purpose. So that should not be done, and it should not be too specific, meaning ideal type should not be too specific in the sense that say when it comes to democracy, especially participatory democracy, you are just looking into whether the elections are carried out, on a timely basis or not. It becomes too specific. There, the real comparison or understanding of social reality is not possible, right? By just taking whether elections are conducted on a timely basis or regular basis, you will not be able to assess the performance of different democracy, because that is not the only factor that you should consider while assessing the performance, right? There are several other factors as well. So it should not be too specific, it should not be too generic. Clear? Okay. Now, what are the functions or utility of ideal types? One is analysis of empirical questions, right? As I've mentioned, by drawing an ideal type, by creating an ideal type, you will be able to study objectively through empirical evidences. It acts as a tool of classification, because in our example we try to analyze electoral democracy, right? So by using the same ideal type, we can compare different countries, and based on the performances we can classify countries, right? Clear? So maybe we can say that high performing countries, medium performing countries, and low performance countries. Based on the same ideal type, we can actually classify countries based on their electoral performances. Clear? Similarly, it can also guide empirical research. Now, certain revealings in ideal types, or while doing an analysis using ideal type, those analysis may lead to further empirical research. Suppose when we compared India's, electoral, performance, we identified that the proportional representation in India is comparatively low. Now, that may act as hypothesis for conducting further studies. That is why we say that it can act as a source of hypothesis as well as it can guide further research. Is it clear? Okay. So whatever information that is revealed in the ideal typical analysis can also further lead to more research on that topic. Clear? That, yeah. It can guide further empirical research in the sense, see, basically in ideal type we can make it, statistical, right? That statistical element is possible when it also depends on the type of topic that you're covering, but definitely we can make it into an empirical aspect as well, because if you are assessing the performance of India's democracy, that can be made a bit empirical, right? We can say that India's overall performance when it comes to that of the electoral democracy is, say, 80%. So that can be done. That is why we can say that empirical analysis is possible, as well as it can further guide empirical research. Now, why does it help in furthering empirical research? Because if you try to understand the reasons for lower level of proportional representation in our country, we have numbers, right? Because in India a particular section is only represented 80% compared to their actual population. Another section of population is only represented 20% of their actual population. Likewise, when we get data, it can lead to further empirical research, right? Why so and so group is having the least? Why this group, in spite of having lower population, is having higher representation? So that's why we say that it can further guide empirical research. Clear? Okay. Now, also it is equivalent to experimentation in natural sciences. Why is it said so? Because in natural science also experimentation is done on a similar basis, right? We move each and every variable and try to find out how it is impacting the overall event or overall that particular aspect. So likewise in ideal typical aspect also we can find out these kind of variables, and as a result we can find out causality also. Suppose when it comes to that of comparison of performance of electoral democracy, we can say that those countries where the suppose representation is better, okay, in such countries overall performance of democracy is better. Likewise, we can bring out certain correlations, cause effect relationships. So as a result, we can say that it is also similar to that of natural science. We can do that variable analysis. Which variable is most important when it comes to another social aspect or reality. Then causal interconnections that we have already covered, it helps in bringing that kind of causal interconnection. Comparing two different ideal types, we can get some interconnections which can be used to explain the causes of a particular reality. Clear? All set? Now, so as I mentioned, it's very simple. Ideal type and Verstehen approach. These are the two important methodology of Weber. Any doubt? Anyone regarding these concepts? No. All set. Okay. So now let us discuss Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism. Now, what is this study of Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism? What was the aim of Weber here? Okay. 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 See, one of the major aim of this study was to critique the Marxian view on stratification. According to Marx, the social change, right, mainly happens because of changes in the base structure. Now, Weber, through Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism, was able to prove that superstructure may bring changes in the base structure. Because in this study, Weber said that it is the Protestant ethic that has led to emergence of capitalism. So we can say that this study was largely a critique of the Marxian views on stratification and Marxian views on social change. Clear? Also, this study is prominent because Weber was able to use his methodology effectively in a study of Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism. Alright, so what is this Protestant ethic? What is spirit of capitalism? Let us try to understand that. Okay, so first I'll just give you a brief idea of what is Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism, and then we will try to understand how Weber used this methodology in the study. So what is Protestant ethic? Yeah. See, basically, according to Weber, the ethic of Protestant beliefs, or especially to be more precise, the Calvinistic ethic, has or had certain elements that helped in the emergence of capitalism. Now, what were the major tenets of Calvinism? Now, in Calvinism, Calvin said that he was also not sure whether he is the chosen one. Now, chosen one means those who will be reaching the heaven. Okay, those who are chosen by the God to reach heaven. So, according to Calvin, but at the same time, whether you are the chosen one or not is predetermined. Meaning, at the time of your birth itself, it is predetermined, it is fixed whether you are the chosen one or not. So, whatever you do in this particular world may not change it. Now, this will create uncertainty among the followers of Calvinistic ethic. But Calvin mentioned that your success in this particular world will be an indication of whether you are the chosen one or not. If you are successful in this world, it is an indication that you are the chosen one. Now, this particular idea made people work really hard in order to create material success in this world, which will then act as an indication of whether they are the chosen one or not. Clear? Apart from that, the tenets of Calvinism said that the duty of a Calvinist is to create the kingdom of God, to work for the glory of the God. In order to create the kingdom of God in this particular life, so in order to create the kingdom of God, you need to build material success or material aspects in this world, right? So as a result, according to the theory of Calvinism or according to the tenets of Calvinism, work must be considered as worship. Because by working, you are able to create the kingdom of God, and that kingdom of God, by creating the kingdom of God, you are doing service to the God. So it is similar to that of worship. Clear? All set? All right. Now, so according to Calvinist ethic, work is considered as worship. As a result, there is no need for holidays. So, according to other religious belief system, every week there is a particular holiday, but for the Calvinists there is no such holidays. They can work 7 days a week. Clear? Along with that, when it comes to Catholicism, it actually did not allow or ban giving money for interest. Now, when it comes to that of Protestant ethic, it allowed giving money for or giving credit for interest. Now, that unlocked a lot of capital, and as a result, that has also resulted in emergence of capitalism, according to Weber. So, these are some of the kind of ethics. Okay, one more thing that you need to understand is, even though material success is given emphasis in order to ensure that you are the chosen one, as well as to worship God, you need to work and create material success, that is also there. But the Calvinistic ethic also prevented people from using this wealth for their own personal enjoyment and luxury. Instead, they are supposed to live ascetic lifestyle. They should not enjoy the material success that they have created. Clear? Okay. Now let us understand what is capitalism, or the spirit of capitalism. What is the spirit of capitalism? Weber say that capitalism is different from other forms of pre-existing forms of traditional forms of accumulation of wealth. In the traditional forms of accumulation of wealth, like booty capitalism, pariah capitalism, what is booty capitalism? By theft, dacoity, that is known as booty capitalism. Or there was pariah capitalism, meaning by providing, by charging high rate of interest, people used to earn a lot of money. Now, these forms of capitalism, according to Weber, is not moral pursuit of wealth, because it did not involve, when it comes to booty capitalism, it is not moral, it is unethical. Pariah capitalism is also charging exorbitant rate of interest, so that is also not ethical. So these are not moral pursuit of wealth, but in modern capitalism, it is moral pursuit of wealth. Why is it referred to as moral pursuit of wealth? It is through hard work. It is through application of rationality. It is through discipline, right? That the modern capitalists are earning money. Now, in modern capitalism, according to Weber, the features are, the spirit of capitalism and the features of spirit of capitalism are, one is they should be hardworking. Second, they should not enjoy the profits, because the profits should be reinvested so that they can go for further accumulation of profits and capital. And when it comes to a capitalist, modern capitalist, they should also be engaged in work 24/7. They have to be engaged in work, they have to be committed, they have to be disciplined. Now, by comparing the tenets of Calvinism and by comparing the tenets of spirit of capitalism, Weber say that there is similarity between the two. What is the similarity between the two? Here, when it comes to Calvinism, they are supporting hard work. Modern capitalism is also hard work. Here, hard work because of work is considered to be worship. Right? When it comes to that of Calvinism, they are supporting reinvestment. How? Because they say that you should not enjoy your profits. Instead, you should use it for further creating material success. You should use it for building the kingdom of God. Now, when it comes to modern capitalism, it mentions about reinvestment. Right? Discipline is mentioned in modern capitalism. Discipline is also present in Calvinistic ethic. Right? So, likewise, when you consider both of these, the tenets of Calvinism and the spirit of capitalism are the same. By drawing this similarity, Weber said that it is the Calvinism and the Protestant ethic, or to be more precise, the Calvinistic ethic, that has led to emergence of capitalism. Because according to Weber, Calvinistic ethic pre-existed before industrialization, right? It existed even before industrialization. Clear? This is his study on Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism. Now, UPSC have previously asked about the methodology adopted by Weber in a study of Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism. So, as a result, we need to apply that here as well. So, when we are trying to analyze Weber's study using, or if you want to apply the methodology, first is statistical correlation. Now, see, Weber started his research or analysis on Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism because when we compared the data of the capitalist and the higher level executives, he identified that majority of them were Protestants. Now, this generated interest among Weber to study this particular topic. So, his study started with statistical correlation when Weber took the data of majority of the entrepreneurs as well as the higher level executives. He came to, he realized that or he analyzed that majority of them were Protestants. Now, in order to understand how Protestantism is playing a role in emergence of capitalism, he used the Verstehen approach. Now, Verstehen approach was used to understand the shared meanings of capitalism and the shared meanings of Protestantism. Now, here you may get confused why shared meanings, because when it comes to Verstehen approach, it can be used in order to understand the subjective meanings of individual actors as well as the Verstehen approach can be applied to understand the shared meanings of a group. Here, Weber used the Verstehen approach in order to understand the shared meanings of capitalism and the shared meanings of Protestantism. What do you mean by shared meanings? Meaning, all those members of capitalism and all members of Protestantism, what are the meaning that they attach towards Protestantism and capitalism? Clear? By using the shared meanings of capitalism and shared meanings of Protestantism, Weber created an ideal type of capitalism and Protestantism. By comparing the ideal type of Protestantism and capitalism, he came to the conclusion that Protestant ethic has led to the emergence of capitalism. Clear? So, these are some of the major steps. One is statistical correlation, then Verstehen approach. By using Verstehen approach, he was able to identify the shared meanings of capitalism and shared meanings of Protestantism. And based on the shared meanings, he created an ideal type of capitalism and Protestantism. And based on that, he came to the conclusion that Protestantism has led to emergence of capitalism. Yeah. Shared meanings is something that like we have already discussed, right? See, the meaning that Protestant attach to Protestantism. What are the major, ethic of Protestantism? Right? If you ask a follower of a particular religion, what are the meanings that you attach to that of the studies of that religion? Like that is how we understand the major, ethic or tenets followed by a religious group. It is also be present in the religious text, but other than that, it is subjective in the sense, see, basically here Weber did not meet each and every, Protestant and did not take their subjective aspect. Rather, he tried to analyze what are the major tenets that a Calvinist considered to be important for following Calvinism. You're getting the point? So that is what they have done in this case. Correct. It's a kind of a generalization. Clear? Okay. Now, apart from this, Weber also did as fifth methodology, he did comparative studies. Now, why did he do comparative studies? See, Weber also wanted to understand the reason why, even though the material conditions according to Weber was ripe in India and China, but capitalism did not emerge in India and China. So he wanted to connect the religious beliefs with that of the development or emergence of capitalism. For that matter, what he did was he studied all other world religions like Islam, Hinduism, Confucianism, Judaism, etc. Now, based on his analysis, he identified that It was the religious beliefs that were present in these countries that acted as a hindrance for emergence of capitalism. So according to Weber, when it comes to religious beliefs, it can be classified into four different types. How can we classify religious beliefs into four different types? What are the different types? One is inner worldly asceticism. Second is inner worldly mysticism. Then outer worldly, otherworldly asceticism, otherworldly mysticism. Okay. So mystic religions are there, ascetic religions are. Mystic means they are focusing on certain experiences. Like say for example Sufism, where they focus on the experiences that they get. Right? Mystic elements are there in that religion. Ascetic religion means they give emphasis on asceticism, that is sannyasa jividam, right? That is renunciation. So that is ascetic lifestyle. Other one is the mystic aspects of a religion. Now inner worldly and otherworldly means, inner worldly means that religion is emphasizing on the life in this world. Otherworldly means the religion is emphasizing on the life after death. Clear? So based on that, he classified religions into inner worldly and otherworldly, mysticism and asceticism. Okay? Clear? Now, according to Weber, those religious beliefs that promote inner worldly asceticism will lead to emergence of capitalism, because Calvinistic ethic had inner worldly asceticism, because their focus was to build kingdom of God in this world, as well as they promoted ascetic lifestyle. So all those religious beliefs that will promote inner worldly asceticism may lead to promotion of or emergence of capitalism. According to Weber, Judaism also had this inner worldly ascetic orientation, but due to the historical reasons, as they did not occupy a particular geographical location, they were scattered, they were not able to contribute to emergence of capitalism. See, mystic experiences may not lead to capitalism, is what the meditation and all, meaning they are looking for experiences, right? So they will not be interested in building things in this world. Even if they have that particular focus, they will not be, like as in case of inner worldly asceticism, they will not be trying to generate and accumulate wealth. Clear? Because they are always focused on mystic experiences. Okay, clear? Now, so let's move to our PPT and try to understand. Okay. So I hope you are clear regarding what is Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism. See, this is the ideal type that you can actually mention your answers also. If suppose UPSC ask you to write the methodology adopted by Weber. Okay. All set. Now comparative study, Confucianism, Hinduism, you can just refer in this PPT. And finally, limitations. What are the limitations? What are the limitations? Yeah, generalization. What is generalization? Yeah. So he said that all the religions, promoting inner worldly asceticism will lead to emergence of capitalism. But in India also, there are examples of Chettiars, okay, where they are also a popular, business caste, but you cannot say that they are completely following, because Hinduism as such is not considered to be this worldly ascetic. Hinduism is largely considered to be otherworldly ascetic, but still it's a business caste. So you can mention, yeah. Hmm. No, because he himself said that it can be used in both the cases for understanding the individual meanings as well as to understand the shared meaning. So that there's no problem with that. See, another thing is we need to understand, see, think from the Marxian perspective. What will the Marxian thinker say? Other way around. They say that it is not correct because, because Friedrich Engels have mentioned that Protestantism have emerged as a religious ideology to promote capitalism. Right. According to Friedrich Engels, this Protestant ethic is nothing but an ideological conditioning device of capitalists. Right. So you can mention about that. They actually, kind of oppose the idea that Protestantism came in. They oppose the idea that capitalism emerged out of Protestantism. Instead, they say that Protestantism was a religious idea that was created by the capitalism. Okay, then. See, there are also viewpoints that it is not because of Protestantism, but because of the British aristocracy that the capitalism has emerged. Because in order for the capitalism to grow, we need to have huge capital. That was only available with the British aristocracy. As a result, in England, industrial revolution has emerged. Okay. Okay, Weber was a proponent of multi-causal approach, but at the same time there is a loophole, because Weber in his study in Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism have mentioned that it is, even though Protestantism is a major reason for emergence of capitalism, there are other reasons that have contributed to the emergence, like modern accounting system, modern banking system, money economy, etc. So there is no scope for criticism there. Okay, because he is basically for Weber, Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism is a ideal typical study to understand the reasons for emergence of capitalism. He gave overemphasis on, if you are adamant about writing a criticism on that, definitely you can do that. Okay. Other than that, yeah, you can say that all the people who were involved in early capitalism, even though they were Protestants, at the same time they were also migrants. So according to that particular idea, it is the achievement orientation that has led to emergence of capitalism, because all the time the migrant population will have high achievement orientation. Okay, there are also viewpoints that this idea that Protestants were for accumulation of capital is also wrong, because according to the Calvinistic ethic, accumulating capital merely for accumulation purposes also not considered to be a good trait. It is also considered to be a sin, accumulating capital for merely doing that. Okay, so based on all that, you can write some limitations of Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism. Clear? Okay. Now let us move on to the last portion, which is authority and bureaucracy. Now with that, we will be able to wind up Weber. Simple. Okay. Now let us start with authority. What is authority? Legitimate use of power, right? When it comes to power, there are two aspects of power. One is authority and coercion. What is authority? Legitimate use. When it comes to coercion, it is illegitimate use. Now, when it comes to authority, Weber said that there are three types of authority. Here again, it is an ideal typical classification of authority. What are those three types? Traditional authority, charismatic authority, rational legal authority. What is traditional authority? Here the rulers get legitimacy or authority from the customs and traditions of the society. Now the customs and traditions may include religious traditions or customs, family traditions or customs, etc. The most prominent example of traditional authority is monarchy, right? Or religious, type of, say for example, Pope Francis is an example of traditional authority. It is based on the customs followed in that religion, right? Clear? Monarchy and religious leaders are mostly based on this type of authority. Now next is charismatic authority. What is charismatic authority? Here the legitimacy or the authority that is enjoyed by the rulers are based on the charisma of that particular leader, that is the personality traits of that particular leader. People find that leader to be either superhuman, or at least they will consider them to be superior in characteristics or traits. Example: Hitler, Gandhiji, okay, then Modi ji, right? There is a mix of charismatic authority as well as rational legal authority. Now, traditional, no, he is elected prime minister of our country, so this is not traditional. All right. Then third is rational legal authority, meaning here the legitimacy or authority is enjoyed due to the people's acceptance and following of the rules or a written set of rules of a country, especially constitution, right? It is based on the commitment of people towards that of rules or the set of constitution, of a particular written document. Okay. Now, example for this is the prime minister of our country, right? President, all those, elected heads of the countries, they get legitimacy from rational legal authority, from the rules. Clear? Now, why do we say that this is not a real type, instead it is an ideal type? Because in modern times, when you consider different types of authorities, it is a mix of various types, right? When it comes to prime minister of our country, it is rational legal authority as well as it is charismatic authority, right? So likewise you can say that. Or when you compare any other ruler, say for example Dalai Lama, traditional authority as well as charismatic authority, right? So likewise you can see a mix of different types of authorities. Clear? Again, remember the fact that suppose if UPSC asks you a question related to authority, in the conclusion you can write this particular idea. All right. Now let us move towards bureaucracy. Now what is bureaucracy? Hierarchical system based on rationality. Okay. What is bureaucracy? What is the main aim of bureaucracy? Competitiveness, administrative efficiency. See, bureaucracy, according to Weber, is a system which helps in organizing what? Task of large number of people in an effective way, so that the organizational goals can be met. So, the work of large number of people can be effectively, organized and supervised, so that the organizational goals can be met efficiently. That is the purpose of bureaucracy, right? Now, Weber studied bureaucracy because he was fascinated by the idea of bureaucracy, and he was also kind of, yeah, he was concerned as well as he was also fascinated, because the bureaucracy was fast spreading. It was becoming the most prominent type of organizational structure, so he wanted to study about that. Okay, concern regarding bureaucracy is not ideally because of bureaucracy, but because of rationality. Okay, so let us start with bureaucracy. According to Weber, what are the major features of bureaucracy? Hierarchy. It is hierarchical organization. Then there is division of labor. It is merit-based selection. There are written documents at every stage. If you want to communicate, or if you want to have any kind of communication itself, it should be based on written documents. Then it is impersonal, meaning it should be formal. The relationship should be formal. It should not be based on any personal relation. Then there are rules and regulations. Written rules and regulations are there. Yeah, the incentives are given in terms of cash payments or salary are given. Then there is continuity. Why do we say that there is continuity? Yeah, even if a person holding a particular position in bureaucracy changes, it will not affect the functioning of bureaucracy, right? Because it is not based on the person but the position, which is more important there. Then it is monocratic type, meaning a particular position's task can only be performed by the person holding that particular position. Others in different positions cannot do their task. That is why it is referred to as monocratic type. These are some of the features of bureaucracy. Now, why bureaucracy is considered to be functional than other forms of organizational structure? Now, I'm asking what is the advantages of bureaucracy over other forms? Oh, one is it is merit based. It is more rationally organized. Even after the death, there will be continuity and stability, okay, order in the system. Then, huh? Yeah, the major reason is when it comes to that of bureaucracy, the kind of system that the bureaucracy have set up, there is no other organizational structure that can act as an alternative to it, that can replace bureaucracy. Right, even though we say that bureaucracy have several issues that we'll discuss next, but still bureaucracy cannot be replaced by any other institution because of its own advantages. There is proper communication channel, right? Large tasks can be organized effectively because of the proper structure and hierarchy. There is certainty regarding the communication, there is certainty regarding the decision, power, authority, etc. So, because of all these factors, we can say that bureaucracy is superior than any other forms of organization, and there is no alternative for bureaucracy. But on the same hand, we have to also understand the limitations of bureaucracy. What are the limitations? Yeah, iron gauge of rationality. According to Weber, excessive rationality in bureaucracy will make bureaucracy an organization without spirit, right? Because everything will be based on rationality, everything is impersonal, formal. As a result, it will lose its own spirit. Then bureaupathology, because bureaucrats will be mostly engaged in following the rules and regulations rather than focusing on bringing change. Then yeah, you can say that because of the monocratic nature, sometimes the work can be inefficient, right? Because a person holding a particular position's task can only be done by that person, that may make it less efficient. Then red tapeism, you can mention about that, right? Because the communication channel is so complicated. It's not complicated, but it is kind of, it is a lengthy process. As a result, decision making is very slow. Then yeah, strict hierarchy can lead to domination by few individuals, right? It can become a kind of an autocracy also, because those who are in the top levels can dictate any other, people belong to any other level, so it can become authoritarian in nature. It leaves no room for creativity, individual initiative, innovation, creativity, etc. are not, promoted when it comes to bureaucracy. That can also be mentioned. Then any other point? Administrative apathy, you can mention about that, because when it comes to bureaucracy, again, that is also associated with rule orientation and stuff. You can mention about that. Yeah, rules becoming more important than the actual goals, that can also be mentioned. Then you can also mention that in bureaucracy, more importance is given to experience rather than uh, efficiency, right? So that is also a problem when it comes to that of bureaucracy. See, experience is given more importance than that of okay. Yeah, promotions are based on experience rather than based on efficiency. So that can also be mentioned as a problem of bureaucracy. Okay, so that is with bureaucracy. There's no conceptual aspect. Just need to understand the characteristics and the limitations. Okay, all set, all clear. Okay, see, Weber, I believe, is actually the simplest portion when it comes to thinkers. Merton and Weber is quite easy to actually study, because there is no complicated stuff except that of ideal type, which is again not that complicated, but once you get the idea of what is exactly ideal type, it becomes easier. Okay, clear? All set? Clear? Now, see, basically fact, value, objectivity, etc. of Weber, it is actually from, sociology as a science. There's a chapter, right? Sociology as a science. There we discuss about the fact, value, objectivity, all those stuff. Okay. Let's see, for now, we'll only be covering the thinkers portion, but if we get time, maybe we can think of other chapters in the paper one. Okay. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying, for time being, we just have time for this. We'll look into it. Okay. All right. So thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care. See you. Bye.